The latest headlines.
We're waiting for that next young crop to really challenge anybody.
The insightful interviews.
Steve Mazziello, head coach, Manhattan men's basketball.
I directly hold our seniors responsible. It's about them having accountability of the team.
The hottest takes.
Carmelo Anthony has become a poor man's Kobe Bryant.
Can all be found on Press Row. Broadcasting as part of the Brew Sports Network. Here's your host.
Hello!
Christian Heimel.
What is up, everybody? Welcome on Press Row. I am your host, Christian Heimel. So glad to have you along with us on this, our maiden voyage here as part of the Brew Sports Network. So honored and privileged to be a part of this and be with you all wherever and however you may be listening. We're recording this on Thursday, June 8th, and if you are in Cleveland, it is not a good day. Oh man, watching last night, and you really thought it was finally going to be a game that was going to be close. Everybody was excited, and it was that. But then the final 3 minutes and 10 seconds, the Cavs are up by 6, 113 to 107 with 3:09 left, and they go 0 for 8 down the stretch. The Warriors go on an 11-0 run, come away with a huge road victory, 118 to 113, and they're now just one win away from not only winning the NBA title, but finishing the playoffs undefeated. No team in NBA history has ever done that. We're looking at something that's pretty incredible on both sides of it when you really look at it, comparing the Warriors as well to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And just looking through some of the numbers yesterday and watching that game, a couple of different things come to mind, and they both center around LeBron James and his legacy. And we're going to get into this in just a few minutes with Brandon Scoop B. Robinson of Scoop B Radio, who knows the NBA like nobody's business. But the first thing I'm watching is a lot of people were claiming, I've heard this argument made multiple times when you compare LeBron to Jordan, and in the fact that Jordan made his teammates better, LeBron doesn't. You ever watch the game when LeBron's not on the floor? You ever see how bad, how discombobulated, how unorganized the Cleveland Cavaliers are? That, to me, is how good LeBron James is. When you take him off the court, the entire team has no idea what they're doing. And it's not as if LeBron, like Jordan, was taking every single shot. LeBron's a facilitator. He's calling out defenses. He's going after rebounds. That, to me, shows how talented this young man is. And I say young man, he's been around for however long. What is he, 14 years into the league now? He's been around forever, but that's how talented LeBron James is. When he's not on the floor, the Cavaliers look like a team that don't belong in the playoffs, let alone the NBA Finals. And then the second thing that occurs to me is during that 11-0 run, late in the fourth quarter, when the Cavaliers are losing their lead, are falling behind, LeBron James wasn't really around. We made this statement against him as a kid, younger in the league, that he was afraid of that big-time moment. He shied away from the big shot. And you know what? We kind of saw that last night. I mean, you look through the play-by-play of that fourth quarter, and the final 3 minutes and 10 seconds for the Cavaliers look exactly like this. They're up 113 to 107 after J.R. Smith's three-pointer, which LeBron had an assist on, by the way. LeBron James, these are all the things that he had a hand in. James, defensive rebound. James, offensive rebound. James misses 12-foot jumper. Let's see. And then James, offensive rebound on the blocked Iguodala 3, by the way, with 12 seconds left. And then he steps out of bounds and turns it over. You go 0 for 8. Your team is up 6 at home in the final 3 minutes of a Game 3 in the NBA Finals in which you're down 2-0, and you take one shot? And you're supposed to be the best player in the world? Now, I was coming into this NBA Finals hoping and praying and rooting for LeBron because I thought that a championship here could elevate LeBron not to Michael Jordan, surpassing his airness. And listen, I watched MJ. I've seen him live multiple times. He was incredible to watch. But part of me wants LeBron to win multiple championships still, to be able to get to Jordan's level or surpass it, because I think he gets a lot of undeserved hate for how tremendously talented he is. And I think that If it wasn't the Twitter age that we live in now, where everybody can hate everybody for no reason whatsoever and hide behind their comments, LeBron would be revered like he should be. But for whatever reason, people absolutely hate him. And I get the Miami thing, whatever, ignore that. This is a tremendous talent. But if you're the best player in the world, you can't go 3 minutes and 10 seconds in the NBA Finals at home with your team losing a lead and about to go down 3-0 and take 2 shots, one of which is a terribly off-balance corner 3 that gets blocked with 12 seconds to go. You can't do that. If you really want to have a legacy, if you really want to be considered, along with MJ, one of the greatest, you have to step up. And tell me something else here. You're going 0 for 8 in the final 3 minutes. 5 of those shots are 3-pointers? It's really simple, folks. Yeah, with 12 seconds left, they were down by 3. But you know what? With 45 seconds left, they were down 1. They're down 1. And Kyrie Irving is taking a long 2. Give the ball to LeBron James, or if you're LeBron, keep the ball and run at the rim. Did you see Steph Curry trying to guard LeBron James last night? It was embarrassing. Steph is not a defensive player, especially against a guy who is built like a middle linebacker. Give the ball to LeBron at the top of the key, let him run down the lane, get contact, get the foul, get the bucket, 3-point play, momentum shifts in the final 40 seconds. The biggest detriment to LeBron James' legacy is this idea that he shies away from the big moment. And last night, he proved everybody wrong. Everybody. In the fact that not only does he shy away from the big moment, he doesn't want anything to do with it. And you can't do that. So now are the Warriors going to go and sweep? Yeah, probably. Why? Because they're that good. Are they the greatest team of all time if they go and sweep this and they finish the postseason 16-0? Possibly. Does Kevin Durant's legacy as the second best player in the game right now get elevated? Tremendously. Because you know why? Look at what Durant has done in these games. KD alone, yesterday, with that dagger 3, 45 seconds left, that basically ended it, was unbelievable. And this isn't a different Kevin Durant than what we have seen in Oklahoma City. This is just a Kevin Durant where the spotlight doesn't have to be on him. It is in the fact that he left OKC for Golden State and we contrived the stupid idea that he's a villain now in the NBA. You're talking about an insane talent, lanky figure who is just almost unguardable. Even for LeBron, as big as he is, LeBron has no business trying to guard Kevin Durant just because of how lanky, how fast, how athletic he is. But yesterday, 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists on 4 of 7 shooting from the 3-point line. Granted, this is the Warriors system. They are built and they live and die by the 3-point line. But do you look at that 3 that Kevin Durant hit yesterday, and he's coming across a screen, which Kevin Love plays terrible defense on and switching, does not get up on the screen, and LeBron James tries to go underneath the screen instead of over the top. That's a layup. An uncontested 3 from that distance is a layup for anybody else when it comes to Kevin Durant. He's going to win a championship. He may win multiple because he's got another year with the Warriors. But if they can keep all these pieces together, he is finally in a system that benefits his style of play and doesn't force him to be the number one guy. He doesn't have to be that because Steph Curry can do that. He had 30 points yesterday and he had 26 points and 13 rebounds. It's a point guard. Draymond Green, who, by the way, may be the most underrated passer in the history of the game, with 7 assists yesterday. Klay Thompson, when he decides to show up like he did yesterday, 30 points, 16 of them in the first quarter. Durant doesn't have to be that number one guy. In Oklahoma City, he did. And in Oklahoma City, he was battling with his own teammate for that number one guy in Russell Westbrook. Is that a little bit more damning of Russell and the fact that, hey, look how good your team could have been if you didn't try to steal the spotlight from Kevin Durant and you just let KD play? Maybe. But you know what? This isn't a surprise. Nobody should sit there and go, wow, where's this Kevin Durant been all these years? He's always been there. He just hasn't been able to play in a system that allows him to show this. He finally has in Golden State. It's pretty impressive. And now the Warriors are up 3-0. Now they're going to win another championship, most likely in Cleveland, come Game 4, which, you know, if you're LeBron James and you want to have any hope of your career being mentioned in the same breath with Michael Jordan, you're going to have to pull off something MJ never had to, which is winning 4 must-wins. I don't know if MJ ever had to win 4 must-win games to get a championship, because he was pretty good where he was never in this position. So were his teams. But Game 4, Friday, June 9th in Cleveland, and I honestly think it's a sweep. I really do. We'll figure that all out. But you look at that game last night and you wonder if that's 39 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists from LeBron, 38 from Kyrie. Even Kevin Love had 13 rebounds and actually remembered what he's supposed to do for this team. And you still couldn't do it at home. Wow. Let's dive into these NBA Finals a little bit more with a good buddy of mine, guy I've known for 10 years now, Brandon Robinson, ScoopBRadio.com. And Brandon, how are things in the Big Apple?
The Knicks and the Nets are playing, so we're doing just fine. Thank you for having me on, man. I think that game last night, what was it, 11 points in 7 minutes or so?
Yeah, it was a final 3 minutes, 10 seconds, an 11-0 run for the Warriors. Cavs taking 8 shots. LeBron only has 2 of them, including that off-balance corner 3 that was blocked. If you're the best player in the world, how is it that you're only taking 2 shots in the final 3 minutes of a must-win game at home in the NBA Finals?
Well, I think he was the best player, and I think he carried that team the whole game. If you go back and you look at that game, I mean, there were shots he was taking that was just like, they were Kobe-like. You know, sometimes when you watch Kobe Bryant and he take off-balance shots with like a Carmelo foot in the air, you're like, how the heck did he make that shot? I mean, that game was tailor-made for him to win, as well as Kyrie Irving. Those, as they say in both New York and New Jersey, that's a jelly shot, where you basically go in the lane and you make this improbable layup. That game was theirs to win, and, unfortunately for the Cavs, LeBron is the best player in the game. In some respects, he just looked tired at the end. That game, I think they just looked too comfortable at the end, if that makes sense. They just looked like they had it in the bag, and I thought they did have it in the bag, but even when you have it in the bag, you still have to go through the motions to make sure that you secure the bag. And they didn't do that.
Yeah, LeBron playing 46 of a possible 48 minutes, 36 points, 11 boards, 9 assists, 1 assist shy of his 9th NBA Finals triple-double, which would have been an NBA record, one he's currently tied with Magic Johnson with. The other thing that bothers me, and maybe it's because I prefer the old-school version of basketball, 5 of the 8 shots Cleveland takes in the final 3 minutes were threes. Why is it that in this NBA, maybe it's the Warriors' fault, but why is it that we always want the 3 instead of driving to the rim, getting contact, maybe getting that easy bucket and getting the foul?
Well, you talked about being old school. You've always been an old soul. I actually agree with you. I think when you go to today's basketball courts, today's YMCA, guys are taking the ball, playing full-court basketball and just running up and jacking a 3. And that's considered proficient basketball. But, with the Warriors, when they do it, I was just watching the game last night and was thinking the same thing. Like, I remember Curry had the ball. I can't remember what quarter it was, but watched the game, he just jacked that 3 and made it. I think he had 3 guys in front of him on the opposing team. And it's just like, wow, this is the modern-day basketball. I feel like when you talk about those 5 shots the Cavs took that were 3, you know how the Spurs forced you to play in their half-court set? I feel like the Golden State Warriors are forcing you to play their brand of basketball. So instinctively, that three is the shot to make. When you look at the first three games of the NBA Finals, they had the Golden State Warriors imprint. But what's interesting is when you look at the Warriors, to me, the Warriors played the Cavs style of basketball, and the Cavs were playing the Warriors style of basketball. When you watch the Warriors, those guys were taking key threes, but they were driving heavily to the basket. When you're watching Durant was their prototypical LeBron James. He was driving to the lane. He was mixing it up, passing it. In game one, I mean, he was throwing alleys to JaVale McGee. You know, he was involved. He defensively, you know, you question his defensive prowess. There were key games he was locking in. You know, I think that the Cavs were playing like the Warriors, except the shots weren't going in. And so, again, forcing you to play their game, but bigger than that, I think Kyrie and LeBron together scored 77 points. I think the rest of the team scored between 34 or 38 points. I remember just reading stats and just things that just to me stood out. And I just think those threes, you know, at the end, I remember watching the game with 3 minutes left. I said to myself, all the Cavs have to do is manage the game, drive to the basket, draw fouls. It's kind of like at the end of a football game. If you're the quarterback, you just hand the ball to your running back.
Yep.
You don't have to take any. You don't have to play risky football. If you're playing football, you just go in and do what you have to do. The same for basketball. You just bounce the ball, kind of like the end of the game. And I'm just kind of confused on what happened.
He's Brandon Robinson, ScoopRadio.com. Why are we all of a sudden so surprised at how good Kevin Durant is, as if he's never been this good before?
I think because in the middle of all that was going on, you had, if you look at the last few years of the NBA, okay, Kobe retires, LeBron officially is the man, and Kobe retired because of that Achilles injury, but LeBron is the man. Miami wins a couple championships. Golden State wins a championship, and Russell and Durant break up. And also, in between all of that, Durant was injured for a couple years. So it's kind of like people are forgetting that he was that good. I think, you know, I've always said that in order for the Oklahoma City Thunder, those two guys of Westbrook and Durant to be good, they need to go their separate ways. And you know, Russell had a great individual season, and Durant kicked it up another notch, you know, individually. And I think Durant was slated to be the next in command, you know, to carry that torch as the premier the premier swingman in the NBA. I think the foot injury, playing with Westbrook, people forgot how good Durant was, and I think that Warriors system was tailor made for him. You look at that Warriors team, and there were a bunch of shooters that, you know, lacked a alpha male. Draymond has the swag, but Durant is that guy.
Is it more praise for the Warriors system that KD is this good, or is it an indictment on Russell Westbrook as a teammate, OKC as a team, that we didn't really enjoy how good he truly was there?
No, I think it was a matter of, to use an analogy, Durant was in OKC would be the epitome of the guy who was always the man in high school. That when he graduates high school, he goes to college and he comes into his own. Sometimes when you're good, and this transcends basketball, when you're good and you have a talent, sometimes you need to be around other people who bring that out of you in a different way. Not an indictment on Westbrook, because I think they're both brilliant in their own way. But sometimes I think, you know, Durant going to Golden State was just a bunch of guys who bought into a team concept, who have won championships, and going in and doing what they have to do. The only analogy that comes to mind off the bat would almost be like when Deion Sanders left the San Francisco 49ers and went to the Cowboys. Yeah. He was a guy that was good. He played with Ricky Waters. He played with, you know, Steve Young. He played with all those guys. But going to Dallas, it was like, okay, let's go do this thing. Everybody knew what he brought to the table. he was the enemy, but he became a friend. That's the only analogy that really comes to mind. As far as Westbrook, again, I go back to what I said. I think that those two needed their own lane to shine, and they're doing that both collectively. How cool would it be, assuming that the Warriors do win the NBA Finals, that everybody had all this talk about Westbrook and Durant, and Durant is selfish, and Westbrook is loyal to Oklahoma City, which was a far cry from how people thought Westbrook was selfish. Mm-hmm. But how crazy would it be if Westbrook is named the NBA's MVP at the NBA Awards, and Durant is named the NBA Finals MVP after they win? I think that's what's going to make them kind of reunite. You know, I think absence makes the heart grow fonder.
You've been getting a lot of run with what Kenny the Jet Smith told you, and that how he felt his Houston Rockets could beat Jordan's Bulls. If the Warriors team sweeps this postseason and they go 16-0 after 73 wins last year, are they the greatest team that's ever been assembled in the NBA?
I think they're in the history books, but I think the story's still evolving. I find that sometimes in sports, people are ready to just crown folks without the story fully being written. And again, I'm a child of the 90s, and I look at the Bulls. I think sometimes people think that Michael made that look so easy. That was not an easy feat for the Bulls to win, 6 championships, and Michael taking 2 years, or basically the Bulls being out of it for 2 years, coming back and winning 3 more. But, I think the Warriors are a good team. You don't take anything away from them, and they, as Beyonce would say, let me upgrade you. They upgraded, they added to it, and they did what they needed to do. I think they're in the history books, but I do think that Warriors Cavaliers is our generation's Lakers Celtics, and I know that's been said a lot. But I tell my mom, I said, Mom, I'm your age now when you were raising me. The 70s and the 80s were Lakers and Celtics territory. I think that this generation, it's LeBron, Cavs, Warriors, Heat. It's so layered because LeBron being his own brand and his own entity is so indicative upon where we are as a society with the freelance and the brand generation that we're in post recession. So I think the Warriors, they'll be there, and everybody's going to want to play for them now, even taking less money.
Yeah, what makes it more ridiculous is that everyone's still got 2 years on their contract, so we know the Warriors will be around for a little bit longer. Speaking with Brandon Robinson, ScoopBRadio.com, if the Cavs get swept and LeBron goes 3-5 all-time in NBA Finals, what does it do for his legacy or this comparison that we all try to make with him to Michael Jordan?
Well, I've said this on every show I've been on, and I'll say it again. When Michael was considered the greatest, Michael's story was still being written, and Michael wasn't being compared to Bill Russell and Magic. Michael was Michael. If it wasn't for Michael Jordan, people would still be wearing the Converse weapon sneakers. Michael changed the game. That being said, LeBron is LeBron. I don't even look at LeBron as a Michael Jordan player, a comparison rather. I think when you look at Michael, Kobe is the second coming to Michael. I think that LeBron is LeBron. LeBron, because you come in calling yourself the king, you're open to criticism. It's almost like when you post something on Instagram and you get ridiculed because you have to deliver a forecast what you're bringing to the table. That said, I don't think it affects LeBron's legacy because, again, I think that people compare LeBron to Michael because Michael's won 6 championships and never lost a series in the finals. Mm-hmm. You can't compare those two, in my opinion. I think LeBron is our generation's Michael, but as far as the alpha dog, but he's going to do it in his own way. Because again, I don't think LeBron plays like Michael. LeBron is to me more like Penny Hardaway, Jalen Rose, Scottie Pippen, Oscar Robertson, and Magic Johnson than he is Michael. And to be honest with you, the way that he plays the game reminds me a lot of Charles Barkley as well, particularly in '93 when Barkley played for the Phoenix Suns. Mm-hmm. Back to the basket, beyond 15 feet past the basket. I think, writers have opinions. Opinions are like smiles. Everybody has one, and The same people who say it affects LeBron's legacy 1 minute when the Cavs are losing are the same people that when LeBron and the Cavs are winning are comparing him to Michael. Which is it? I think we live in a very fickle and non-brand loyal society. LeBron is LeBron, and his story is still being written, just like the Cavs, as the Warriors are still being written.
You know, it's funny. I've always felt the LeBron-MJ comparison was ridiculous, mainly because of their skill set. To me, LeBron's more like Magic, but it bothers me more that we talk about Michael's 6 rings. We don't talk about Bill Russell's 11 or Kareem's 6. Anyway, if the Cavs do get swept, what do? Because I'm looking at box scores, and 13 rebounds for Kevin Love was a great game last night, but he's just 1 of 9 shooting. Is he the odd man out?
I felt that Kevin has been the butt of jokes and the odd man out for a couple years. And I think, I know in season, the Carmelo Anthony for Kevin Love deal was a realistic possibility. I've always said, even during the time when LeBron was in Miami, that he and Carmelo teaming up was imminent. And I think Kevin is the odd man out, but I think so is Tristan Thompson. I spoke with a former NBA player yesterday who basically said Tristan Thompson will be the next Roy Hibbert, a guy that when he came in the league was productive, and then all of a sudden kind of fell off the bandwagon. As a matter of fact, the former player said to me, "Mark my words, Brandon Bennett, that's going to be the next Roy Hibbert." They were adamant about that, and it's crazy because I think Tristan came in hungry, held out of training camp, and is represented by LeBron James' clutch agency, Maverick Carter, all those guys. But if you want to get better, what better way to buy low than to snag a potential Carmelo Anthony deal? It kind of reminds me of when Jason Kidd was coming off of the domestic violence situation with his ex-wife, Jemima Kidd, and the Nets were able to trade low and sending Stephon Marbury and a host of other players to Phoenix in exchange for Jason Kidd. And then look what happened. Jason Kidd took the New Jersey Nets to 2 straight NBA Finals appearances. And, the Lakers and the Spurs were just too good. The Nets had a chance to beat the Spurs. But Carmelo Anthony is one of the purest small forwards to play the game. I put him up there with 2 of my favorite small forwards, Larry Bird and the big dog Glenn Robinson. Pure small forwards, pure scorers. I think people give Carmelo a lot of slack, but everything that's going on in his personal life as well will be a fresh start. Cleveland is a place to kind of just tune out the noise and do what you do. It's definitely different than Madison Avenue, but Kevin Love. Like him, but I also think Kevin Love is one of those guys that benefited from playing on a bad team and scoring a ton of points. I'm going to take it back for basketball fans a little bit. It reminds me of Jamie Fike, who played for the Nets years ago. After Jason Williams got hurt, broke his leg, he was rebounding, putting up 20 rebounds, 15 rebounds a game, and then disappeared. Same with Chris Humphries. Before the team added pieces to it. He was rebounding like crazy, and then he disappeared. Kevin Love got a good contract, for playing for Minnesota, and kind of is not playing to his level, and, it's unfortunate.
Last thing before I let you go, I don't see the Cavs coming back from this, so how about a way too early prediction for next year? Do we see a Warriors-Cavs final for the 4th straight season?
Well, I look at the situation in the Eastern Conference, and watching the Wizards, I feel the Wizards are maybe 2 key players away from being a contender, like a serious contender. I look at the Boston Celtics. You saw a lot of holes in their offense, and you want to see what happens with obviously the health of Isaiah Thomas after having surgery, and then certain key pieces what they're going to do in the draft and how the draft translates into whatever. But you're asking about the Cavs. Realistically, I think the Cavs have talent in their team to beat the Eastern Conference, but I also think they've been exposed by the Warriors. I do think that they're good enough to make it to the finals, but I also think in order for them to appear in the finals next year, they're going to have to make some key alterations. They're a good suit that's just too baggy. You got to tailor it to the weight. And The Warriors will be there, but I also think in the Western Conference, and I've said this before, if the Spurs do manage to nab a Chris Paul, or if the Clippers make some key trades with key superstars, and the Banana Boat teams do find a way to play together, I feel like the Clippers would be an ideal destination to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Hopefully a fun rest of the series. We know it's going to be a fun offseason and definitely a fun season next year. Scoop B, Brandon Robinson, how can more folks hear from you, and how can they see those pictures of you sitting courtside with Rihanna?
Well, you can visit my website, both my websites. You can visit scoopbradio.com. Scoop B Radio is on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app. I have interviews with anybody from Terrell Owens, Isaiah Thomas, Pete Sampras, Jalen Rose, Wyclef Jean. It's a place where it mixes hip hop, entertainment, sports, and also you can. I'm also the managing editor at Respect Magazine. It's an entertainment website, and men's editor and columnist there. So you see me dropping everything in. More than anything, follow me on Instagram, Scoop_B. Follow me on Twitter @ScoopB, and you can follow me on Snapchat, Scoop_B. You can see my workouts and food that I like to cook as well.
My man, you are all over the place. True marketer, Scoop B, Brandon Robinson, ScoopBradio.com. Thanks a lot, brother.
My man, talk to you soon. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio. Good friend of mine, known him for a while. He I forget where I saw it. He was on some show, and somebody asked him about what it was like to sit courtside next to Rihanna. I think it was after Kevin Durant supposedly stared her down. It was at Game 1 or whatever it was, but no, great guy, a lot of insight on the NBA. He check him out online, scoopbradio.com. Really good guy. Yeah, we were talking about what this does for LeBron's legacy if he gets swept or if he just loses in general, and he's 3-5 all time in the NBA Finals. And I've never understood it. I've never understood why we are so enamored and so desired to cut this kid down, cut this man down, and LeBron James by saying, oh, he's not the greatest, or he's not Michael Jordan. Well, yeah, he's not. He doesn't play the same position. He doesn't play the same way. He doesn't play in the same era. Is he the greatest in our age, in this current age? Yes. Is he the best player of the last 15 years since he entered the league? Yes. Will he statistically be better than Michael Jordan in just about every category? Yes. By the time his career is over. But when we sit there and we automatically want to say, oh, he's not the greatest, he'll never be MJ because he doesn't have 6 rings, or because he had to go to Miami and he was on a super team and had to win it. Well, do you not remember what the Bulls were? The Bulls were a super team. I mean, yeah, you had other stars that they were going against and other big-name talent, but you're talking about Scottie Pippen, arguably the greatest defender of a generation or maybe of all time. You're talking about Dennis Rodman, who was one of the best rebounders in the league at that time. Steve Kerr becomes a tremendous three-point shooter, one of the more clutch ones we've ever seen. Yeah, the Bulls were a super team. So let's stop sitting there and saying, oh, Michael never had to play on a super team. Yeah, he did. He did have to play on that to be able to win championships, because there were teams like the Rockets, like the Celtics, like the Pistons, that were right there with him, like the Knicks even, or the Pacers. There were teams that were there that could have come away victorious if Michael had not played on a super team. And then the other part of it is, to me, that really bothers me, is the fact that there are two different types of players. Michael was a small forward. He was a shooting guard. He was that combo 2-3. He was a tremendous shooter, tremendous scorer. That's not what LeBron was. He was an insane talent out of high school that had point guard skills. Like I said when we were talking with Brandon, he, to me, is more like Magic than he is Michael. He's got the same skills. You could line LeBron up at center and be just fine. Is he in my top 5? Yes. My top 5, I was thinking about this last night. If I had to put together a starting 5 of the greatest NBA players of all time, in my opinion, I'm putting Magic Johnson at the point, putting LeBron at the 2, Michael at 3, and then Kareem and Bill Russell down low. You tell me those aren't the 5 greatest players in the history of the game. Bill Russell, 11 championships in 13 years. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar changed how that position was played, changed the landscape of the NBA. Michael, without being said, don't need to say anything. Magic Johnson, if he didn't have to leave the NBA because of his illness, we could be talking about, oh, Michael will never be as good as Magic. That's how good Magic Johnson was. This kid played center as a rookie point guard in the league and won an NBA final. And then LeBron. My whole point is, we live in this generation of Twitter and hot takes and just say something crazy. Can we just sit back and appreciate how freaking good LeBron James is, whether he loses in the championships or not? Can we just appreciate how talented LeBron James is and that we are watching one of the greatest talents in the history of the NBA? Is that possible? Can we do that? Be nice. Anyway, Game 4 coming up Friday, June 9th in Cleveland, and it's going to take something that's never been done before for LeBron to get that 4th ring and to go back-to-back in Cleveland. Another championship series currently happening is in the NHL, the Nashville Predators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Also on Friday, June 9th, the series shifts back to Pittsburgh 2-2. And if you're not a hockey fan or if you don't watch it, I don't know why. You need to watch the NHL playoffs. First off, in my opinion, the NHL playoffs are better than any playoff system there is. It is so much fun to watch. The atmospheres are tremendous. You watch Game 3 and 4 in Nashville, and I know people want to think, and they don't think Nashville is a hockey town. Guess what, folks? It is. It is the hockey town right now. Ignore the fact that they've never been in a Stanley Cup final, let alone a Western Conference final. Ignore the fact that Pittsburgh, one of the most prestige franchises in the history of the game, is going against them. But that atmosphere, you can feel it watching it on TV. That atmosphere is where you want to be in the NHL. And I've talked about this with a couple of different people. It's been that way for a while. It's been like that in Nashville for 6, maybe 7 years. They just haven't reached this far yet. And I couldn't be happier. I think it's tremendous. I think the fact that you get all these celebrities to show up helps. What made the Lakers great? What made Showtime awesome was the fact that you had great talent, a great home atmosphere, and all those celebrities sitting courtside. You got that in Nashville. You got great talent, you got a great home atmosphere, and you got all these celebrities showing up to watch. It's really, really fun. The question that I have, though, as we get into the actual nitty-gritty of it, is can Nashville win a road game? They're going to have to win a road game. It's a best-of-3 series, tied up at 2. The home teams have won all 4 games so far in this best-of-7. The first 2 in Pittsburgh, Nashville didn't look like they belonged. The next 2 in Nashville, Pittsburgh looked like they had no idea what they were doing. So Nashville's going to have to win one of these games in Pittsburgh, whether it be Game 5 or Game 7 if it gets that far. And it's going to be tough. Now, I think what's great is the fact that Nashville had, a 5-1 win in Game 4. That's huge for them. It's a big confidence boost to get Nashville potentially over the hump. But in these playoffs, Nashville has played 20 games in the playoffs. They are 5-5 on the road, 9-1 at home. It's a big thing for them. They need guys like Arvidsson, guys like PK Subban. And I know some of you may not know these names, but the Nashville defense has been the best that we've seen in a couple of years here in these playoffs. Pekka Rinne, who has been maybe the best kept secret in the NHL over the last couple of years, with just how talented of a goalkeeper he is. That's not to say Pittsburgh doesn't have their own in Matt Murray. He's been tremendous. But, Nashville's defense is better, in my opinion. On the flip side, Pittsburgh's got an insane offense. When you look at what Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin can do when they're together, it's amazing. And when you look at Game 4, what I thought was really telling about Game 4 was how off their game Crosby and Malkin were. Foolish penalties, poor passes, not really able to get many shots off. And that's a credit to Nashville's defense for frustrating 2 of the most offensively gifted players in the world. Maybe the 2 most offensively gifted, all due respect to Connor McDavid in Edmonton. But this is a tremendous series. It's very fun to watch. Every series in the NHL playoffs has been competitive, and that's one of the biggest things that I have as to why I absolutely love the NHL playoffs. But Game 5, I think, is obviously pivotal. Everybody wants to talk about it, and they use that word, and it's obvious. But for Nashville to win that game could be the catalyst. If they win Game 5, I think they win Game 6 in Nashville. If they lose Game 5, that's a different story, just because now you've got to win. You got 2 must-win games. Yes, one of them would be at home back in Bridgestone Arena, but then you got to go back to Pittsburgh where you haven't won yet. It's going to be key. And I've seen some crazy articles. We live, like I said, we live in this society where it's all about legacy. And are you really the greatest? Can you be the greatest? Same with LeBron and MJ. Can we stop with it? I saw an article where it said that this series was going to be the stamp of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin's legacy. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because for the last 15 years, there hasn't been anybody better offensively than Sidney Crosby. And when you pair him with Evgeny Malkin, there hasn't really been anybody better than those two. So why do we put this on them winning a championship? They'd be the first team, if they win this series, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the first team to repeat in the NHL as champs since Detroit in 97-98. 20 years since the league has had a repeat champion. Granted, one of those years was the lockout season, but just think about that. We talk about competitive balance in the NBA or in the NFL or even in Major League Baseball. You've got it in the NHL. You've got it in hockey where so many teams can win. Yeah, the Blackhawks had their run where they were tremendous and they kind of traded off with Boston for a couple of years. But you're never surprised when a different team shows up. You're never surprised when it's the Anaheim Ducks or the Los Angeles Kings winning 2 out of 3 years. You shouldn't really be surprised that it's Nashville. It's a great story because they were the 16th seed out of 16 teams. They swept the number 1 seed in Chicago in the first round, and now they're 2 wins away from their first ever Stanley Cup final. But we get so caught up in these legacies and in these, is there competitive balance? And yeah, in the NHL there is. So it's a great time to be a hockey fan. And for all you who are true diehard hockey fans, I'm so happy for you that you get to watch something like this. And that you get to see something as exciting. Because who knows when we're going to get to see that again? Who knows? You are on Press Row, part of the Brew Sports Network. I'm Christian Heimel. So glad to have you guys with us here on this, our first podcast of what will hopefully be many, many more. Want to touch on some couple other headlines that I saw out of the last couple of days. The first being in the NFL, and what in the world is going on with the New York Jets? Seems as if they're selling the farm, they're tanking, whatever you want to call it, getting ready for 2018. But there are a lot of names that Jets fans have known for years that are no longer with the team. You look at Nick Mangold, Devin Harris, Eric Decker just recently getting released or traded, whatever it's going to be, according to Adam Schefter. There's a lot going on with the Jets, and it kind of makes you wonder what they're really thinking here. What is Woody Johnson's plan? What is the go-to move now for the Jets as they have to figure out a way to compete? And there are a lot of respectable writers that are sitting there going, they may actually be 0-16. They may actually be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL coming up this year. And if that's what they're trying to do, if that's what they're trying to get to that maybe number 1 overall pick where they could potentially draft a Sam Darnold or a Josh Rosen or a Josh Allen potentially, then okay. Why weren't you involved in that this year? Why did you not go out and draft a Deshaun Watson if you had the chance? Or a Mitch Trubisky? Granted, I know Chicago traded up to get him because they really, really wanted him. But if you're now tanking to get to the number 1 pick next year to take a quarterback, why didn't you take one this year? Are you really that confident in your quarterbacks right now? I mean, who do you have? Josh McCown? Is that really going to be your starting quarterback? Gino's not. Are you going to go Christian Hackenberg, who a couple of years ago there were reports out of the Jets that before they drafted Hackenberg, one Jet scout said he couldn't throw a ball into water if he was standing on the beach. I don't understand what they're doing. Those are your two options at quarterback. You had Deshaun Watson, you had Deshaun Kaiser. Why not go after one of those this year if that's where your biggest key was? You wouldn't have to get rid of Eric Decker. Decker is one of those guys that you really probably did need. David Harris being gone is, wow. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's up there a little bit in age, but he was one of your better guys on the other end of the ball. It's strange to think that Woody Johnson is going to put not only his quarterback, whoever it is, but his head coach and Todd Bowles in such a terrible position. They've essentially hit the reset button here and decided that we're all in on 2018 before 2017 even begins. You could have found a way, and this is a Jets fan base that has been tortured and brutalized for a decade now. It started with Rex Ryan and the whole Mark Sanchez issues, whatever it was, even though I thought that was the best combination the Jets had since Namath, realistically, because you had a coach that had a game plan, knew what they wanted to do, had a quarterback who could execute that. Remember, Mark Sanchez went to back-to-back AFC title games in his rookie and sophomore season. And he did that with a coach who had a philosophy that didn't put his quarterback in terrible positions. He didn't do that. He put his quarterback in winning situations. And say what you want about, the negative connotation of being a game manager. Game manager almost got you to 2 Super Bowls. Todd Bowles has gotten you where? Top 10 pick in the draft? I mean, I really don't understand what's happening with the Jets. I really don't get it. It's disturbing. It kind of makes you wonder, because you're going to sit there and everybody's trying to be like the Patriots. They're trying to beat the Patriots. And you got to do it twice. And by releasing, it's a huge salary dump. I get it. Something like $70 million. But who's out there that they're going to go get? And then this brings up the other option. If you're trying to win, say they're not trying to tank, which by all accounts, it looks like they are. If it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. But you didn't go get a quarterback. Now you're so focused in the draft. Now you're so focused on next year, where there could potentially, maybe, possibly be a great quarterback. Is there a reason why you haven't gone after Colin Kaepernick? Your 3 options right now are Josh McCown, Christian Hackenberg, and Bryce Petty. I don't understand why you're not at least talking to Colin. Maybe something came out of Seattle where he's asking too much money. I don't think it's that he doesn't like the idea of being a backup, because the only reason he went to talk to Seattle is for a job. You're not going to Seattle and replacing Russell Wilson right off the bat. New York is a place, the Jets, where he could be a starter, legitimately. Sure, the media firestorm, whatever it is, that's not the market for all the baggage that comes with Colin. But explain to me why, if you're trying to put a product on the field to go to your fans and say, hey, come watch us, and right now there are multiple people saying they're going to go 0-16, that's not a way to get fans in the seats. You bring in Colin, maybe you win a few games, maybe you win a few more than you should, because you got a quarterback who can scramble, quarterback with a strong arm, and with something to prove after last year. Instead, you're giving away your best assets at the non-quarterback position. And it's going to be a very bad year for Gang Green. It really is. It's going to be embarrassing. And for Jets fans, I'm sorry. Because you're going to have another year of It's a New York Giants town. It's just going to happen. You know? You're going to have to figure it out, and your owner, your coach, they're going to have to find a way to do something that is worth going to watch. I don't think they're going to do that. They've been a media firestorm and a media circus ever since Rex Ryan showed up on a beach with a Mark Sanchez tattoo. Well, his wife in a Mark Sanchez jersey. So, show must go on. Apparently the circus does too. Yesterday it was announced, Wednesday, June 7th, that Bob Stoops, the Oklahoma coach, would be stepping down after 18 years. And, Bob was a great coach in the Big 12. A great coach at Oklahoma. He will go down as arguably, and maybe not even arguably, the greatest coach in Sooner football history. But, that being said, the talent level of the Big 12 has come down tremendously over the last decade. A lot of that has to do with a guy named Nick Saban, guys like Les Miles, Urban Meyer, and Harbaugh now in Michigan. But what he did at Oklahoma at the very start is where his legacy will be known. The Sooner football program was in such shambles in the late 90s that when Bob Stoops showed up for his first day of practice, chicken bones and wings were found on the practice field. That's not how you operate a college program. And he turned that around, and just a couple of years later, 2000, wins a national championship. Now he's won 10 straight Big 12 titles, but again, because of teams moving to the SEC or wherever the conference realignment went, and because of most talent going to the SEC, there are some issues, and the Big 12 championship doesn't look as big as it once used to. I'm always going to remember Bob Stoops for a couple of things. Number one is, of course, that 2000 national title and what he was able to do that year. Tremendous talent that he recruited out of Oklahoma. I mean, you look at Baker Mayfield, who was arguably a Heisman Trophy winner, and this year alone, he had Sam Bradford win a Heisman. He had two guys win Heismans. But then the other thing that I'm always going to remember for whatever reason, and this isn't an indictment on Bob, it's more of a credit to Chris Peterson, is I'm always going to remember, and just the Statue of Liberty play that had Boise State defeat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. What a tremendous game that was. And that was years ago. But it always sticks out in my mind as one of the greatest plays in college football just because of the magnitude of it. This small school out of nowhere taking on the giant out of the Big 12. But heck of a career for Bob Stoops. Lincoln Riley, the offensive coordinator, is going to take over. His brother Mike Stoops is the defensive coordinator. All accounts are saying he's going to stay. So Sooner football is in good hands. Bob, one of the greatest coaches in that program, maybe in that conference of all time. Fortunately, haven't seen any headlines saying he's the greatest or one of the greatest of all time. But just a great guy that we were fortunate enough to have coaching in college football. Touch on the MLB real quick as we are closing in on the trade deadline. We're just a couple weeks away from that all-important trade deadline, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. One of the bigger storylines this year have been how great the Rockies have been, talented Arizona out in the National League. Can they sustain it? Do they need to make any trades? Teams like the Cubs, the defending champs who have struggled, do they need to make a trade? Do they need to do anything that's going to help boost them? I don't think the Cubs need to do anything. I'm not concerned about them right now. Couple of foregone conclusions in the American League West with the Astros running away with it, and the National League East with the Nationals running away with it. So it's a fun time in baseball right now. You look at some of the great players that you're seeing. Aaron Judge making a case for rookie and potentially MVP with the New York Yankees. You look at what some of the other guys have done. Clayton Kershaw continuing to dominate. Is he the greatest pitcher of all time? He's making an argument for it. I mean, he's got to win a championship or two. I know I said earlier that I don't get why we're so enamored with championships, but you can't be that great and not have one ring to wear. And Clayton right now doesn't have that, even though he is the most dominant pitcher in the game over the last 5-6 years. And then you look at, of course, what's great, and this is where baseball is great. Baseball is great when the Yankees and Red Sox are at the top of their division. They're 1-2 right now, heading into tonight, again, June 8th. They are 2 games separated. The Yankees ahead 2 games in the American League East. The Yankees, what really is going to be important to me is their pitching. They've got great lineup. Gardner's really hitting well. Aaron Judge and all those others, Gary Sanchez. But last night's game with CC Sabathia pitching showed me something. CC's looking like that 2009 CC, which is great for the Yankees. That 2010, turn of the decade, CC Sabathia, who was dominant. Masahiro Tanaka hasn't looked that good. Biggest question for the Red Sox is going to be David Price. He looked great in his return and his season debut over the weekend, but he goes tonight against the Yankees, and he's going to be a big key for them. If they can get David Price on tap, then you've got Price and you've got Sale, solid bullpen. Drew Pomeranz is hit or miss. Rick Porcello needs to figure it out. But baseball is at its best when it is Red Sox, Yankees competing for championships. That's the biggest thing, but we're going to have to solely watch on that in maybe about a week because the NBA Finals are probably ending this weekend and the Stanley Cup Final will be ending shortly after that. It's been a fun show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on Press Row. And if you have any questions you want answered, any thoughts, by all means, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Heimel. You can find us on Brew Sports at Brew Sports Net. Check us out on Facebook as well. Until next week, I will see you on Press Row.